Alhamdulillah. Hey, brother Razul, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Alhamdulillah. Yes, it's Matthew. I'm calling in from Gambia.
Brother Matthew,
Yeah,
mashallah.
alhamdulillah. Salam, brother. I just got done spending a week in Medina Bay, and I connected with Muhammad Ali. Do you know Muhammad Ali?
Yeah, I know him very well. That's my man.
Yes, alhamdulillah. And he told me, I was like, oh yeah, do you know? I asked him if he knew who you were. He's like, yeah, you had lived there, and we had a great conversation about you. So alhamdulillah, people remember you in Medina Bay and all the goodness that you spread there. So I just want to let you know that.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Man, it's great to hear your voice, man. I just said this to another brother who just tapped in, but I've been meaning to give you a call as well.
Alhamdulillah. My phone's always available, so call whenever you can.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Inshallah, I will. Now I'm gonna switch out. Let me see.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Sorry, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Subhanallah. Have I been muted this whole time?
Yes.
Subhanallah. MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So thank you for letting me know I was muted. I want to say welcome everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome everyone to our weekly Maliki Fiqh class. Thank you all. I feel blessed and honored to be here with you all for what is a really important undertaking. And it's really amazing and beautiful to see the names and hear the voices of some of you all who I haven't talked to in a while. And I know I owe some of you all some calls, like someone just said in the chat. So two things I want to announce before we start. One, it was brought to my attention today that the class actually cuts into the time of the communal wazifa. As some of you all know, the Tijani community, which many of us, but not all of us, but many of us are a part of, has a Zoom wazifa where they make the Zoom. And I know some people want to participate in that. If you're interested in participating in that and you don't have the information, let me know and I'll make sure to text you the link or make you a part of the group that announces that. But that starts at 6:30 Eastern time, so 3:30 my time, right? So I'm gonna try to keep our class short for the next couple of weeks so that it doesn't cut into that time, and we'll see how it goes. If we run over time with the question and answers, then the people who want to stay can stay, and you can always check out the Q&A that you missed on YouTube. But I'm gonna try to keep our classes close to ending around 3:30 my time, 6:30 your time. And soon Maghrib will come in later, so we'll have more time. Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are. If that is making the class too short, then we can reevaluate. But I don't want to make people choose between studying the fiqh and making the adhkar, making the ibadah, right? Some real dyed in the wool, as they say, real hardcore fiqh teachers will say, no, the fiqh is more important than the dhikr, because one scholar is harder on shaitan than 1,000 ignorant worshippers, right? But I'm not going to go there because both are important, right? So I'm not going to make you choose, inshallah, and I'm going to try to keep our classes down to 3:30. I'm going to try, bi'idhnillah. I know I can be long-winded, so work with me, be patient with me. The second thing that I want to say is I want to give a quick update on Sheikh Amin, our beloved teacher, may Allah preserve him. So Sheikh Amin was in an assisted living facility in Phoenix. Alhamdulillah, jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for that comment. But Sheikh Amin was in an assisted living facility in Phoenix. He had a fall. It appears he had a fall, and he caught COVID. So he was in the hospital. He's out of the hospital now in a different facility that's sort of a rehabilitative facility to help him, kind of work through the issues related to the fall. And our good brother Sidi Kaba Abdul Fattah, who many of you know, but if you don't know, he is really the force behind this Ruhul Adab group and in the various classes associated with that group that this is a part of. This class comes out of that effort. So one of my teachers, one of my good big brothers, he actually is in Phoenix right now visiting Sheikh Amin. He's been there for, I don't think it's been a week yet, but his whole trip will probably be just over a week. And he, inshallah, will hopefully be there while Sheikh Amin moves to another facility that hopefully he'll be able to be in long term. Now, I want to make it known to people that one of the things that we are committing to doing is giving some consistent financial support to help Sheikh Amin and his family with this new facility they're moving into. It's going to be a little bit more expensive than what they can really cover. So because, alhamdulillah, we've been raising funds in the community, we have a little bit that we're able to help with, and we're hoping that we can help consistently. We want to help to the tune of maybe about $1,500 a month. That's our goal, and I think we can do it. Again, as I always say, we're not charging for classes. We don't want people to feel obligated to give anything. If you have the ability to give and you want to give, alhamdulillah. If you don't have the ability to give, then just continue to make dua for the Sheikh and for all of us. But I'll post in the chat at the very end of class the different ways that you can send money to my Cash App, to Zelle, to my wife's PayPal, and make sure if you do send money through any of those ways, you add a note saying what the money is for, right? We sent a little bit something last month. At the end of last month, we want to send something again this month. So I want to let people know that. So that's an opportunity for us to give and support. Please let me know if you'd like more information. But the main thing is I want people to know is that Sheikh Amin is recovering from that fall. Sidi Kaaba is down there. His daughter is there, and we're all working together to try to put him in a place, a facility where he'll be comfortable, and he can get the support and get the care that he needs. So, alhamdulillah, things are in a good space, but continue to make dua, and if you're able to give some kind of financial contribution to that effort, please do so, and may Allah reward you. And if you're not, then make dua. The dua is big, right? It may be that the person who doesn't have any money to give, but sits and makes a sincere dua for our Sheikh, that through the barakah and the blessing, the acceptance of that dua, that we are even more that we're successful, that we have the ability to be able to contribute financially to help support our Sheikh. Does anybody have any questions or concerns or thoughts about that before we jump into the actual class, inshallah? Okay, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. So we're gonna jump right into it. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدر المقدار. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وأزواج أمهات المؤمنين وذرياته وأهل البيت كما صليت على إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم إني أسألك من كل خير سألك من محمد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأعوذ بك من كل شر استعاذك من محمد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم اغفر لنا ما قدمنا وما أخرنا وما أسررنا وما أعلنا وما أنت أعلم منا. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم إنا نعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات ومن فتنة القبر ومن فتنة المسير الجهل ومن عذاب النار وسوء المصير. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد رضي الله عن أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. يا همة الشيخ اهدرنا بهذا المحضر وتأتي بنظرة تأتينا بظهر. أما بعد. And I see it's already 3:15. 6:15 for you on the East Coast, so we may go a little bit past the 3:30 mark today, and I just have to do a better job of making sure we inshallah ta'ala get started more promptly at 3 next week and can end inshallah at 3:30, but I am going to still try to end pretty close to that today. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to answer a question that was posed last week. Someone asked a question about the wudu. Their question was, what if a person is in a situation where they don't have the ability to wash their foot properly, right? The specific question was, what if a person, has some sort of surgery and as a result, they're not able to wash their foot, as they normally would with their hand? What should they do, right? And I said I would get back to you all this week. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Sidi Hassan, welcome. The answer to that question is this. When it comes to washing the foot, wiping in between the toes is not a fard. It's a sunnah. It's something you should do. In fact, Sheikh Amin told me in one of our classes, he said that if you have the ability, you should do it every time you wash your foot in the wudu. The books say it's good if you do it at least once, right? But it's good if all 3 times that you wash your right foot, all 3 times you wash your left foot, you wipe in between the toes each of those times. But it's not a fard. It's simply a strong sunnah. So if a person is in a situation where they don't have the ability to do that, they have some options. The first option, the best option, is if you have someone who can give you some assistance, who can wipe your foot for you and perhaps even rub in between your toes. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a child, someone that someone that's able to do it. I mean, from a fiqh standpoint, it can be anyone. But, obviously, you may feel most comfortable asking someone who's a close relative or something like that to do something like that. But that's the first option. The second option is, let's say you don't have a person who can help you. If you have something that can assist you, it could be a stick, right? It could even, theoretically, it could even be the wall, right? If there's something that you can rub up against your foot, right? Then you wet your foot and then you rub your foot with a stick or any kind of thing that can assist you. And then you will have fulfilled the fard of dalk. Dalk means like rubbing. You have fulfilled the fard of rubbing your foot, right, in the wudu. Let's say for some reason you don't even have the ability to do that. You don't have a stick, you don't even have a wall that you can rub your foot against, right? In that case, what you can do is you can simply run the water over your foot, right? Allow the foot to wash, right? You will not be fulfilling the dalk, the rubbing, but you will still be considered to have a proper wudu, because you didn't have the ability to do the rubbing, but you had the ability to immerse your foot in water. So if that's the most you can do, then that is enough, and your wudu can be considered valid. Now, someone asked a follow-up question after class via text that I'm not going to get into now, but inshallah next week I'll probably answer this person. Hopefully they know who I'm referring to. Someone asked a follow-up question about the wudu, building on that was kind of intricate, that I'll probably respond to you via text in the coming days, and also I'll talk about it in the next class, inshallah ta'ala. But I'm hoping that is helpful for now. And if a person does not have the ability to do any of that because they fear that this will actually make the disease increase, like let's say if you put water over your foot, it's going to make you more sick, right? Then in that case, you're absolved from that. And next week, we'll talk about what a person does in that situation, in part because I want to get some more clarity about which of the opinions that I've encountered or heard or remember is the stronger opinion. But just in case there's anyone in that position, you should not make wudu with water if this is going to cause you some health problem, right? If it's just an annoyance, you got to do what you got to do. Somebody don't like cold water and all they got is cold water, you have to make wudu. You feel like you don't have enough time, you should still make wudu. But if a person will harm themselves or simply prolong a sickness, if they have some kind of sickness or condition and making wudu with water will prolong it, then they should not make wudu with water. And we'll talk next week about what a person should do in those situations. There's some situations where they make a tayammum, different specifics. In some situations, if you have something covering the spot that's wet, like a cast or a bandage, then you simply wipe over it, right? Or if getting it wet can be a harm, then you put a cloth or something over the bandage and you wipe over that, right? But we'll talk more about that next week. But I wanted to at least share that initial answer. Does anybody have any questions about that? And need any clarifying about that?
Yeah, I just want to confirm the rubbing is it a fard or a strong sunnah?
The rubbing is a fard in the Maliki madhab from what I understand. I I believe that part of the reason why you can make wudu without doing it in this situation is because I think maybe some of the other madhahib don't count it as a fard, right? That's what I remember. I can double check that reasoning for you, but I believe this is why you can take what is called a rukhs, which is an allowance, right? Where you get sort of an allowance, an excuse, right? There's certain excuses in the Sharia where you can follow a different opinion from a different madhab or a weaker opinion, or do something that you wouldn't normally have the ability to do or have the right to do, because you're in a special circumstance, an extenuating circumstance, a special circumstance. I see a couple points in the comments. Someone said, ask, can a person use their right foot to rub their left foot? Yes, that is actually a very good question. They said, is that a weird question? No, that's a very good question. You can use your right foot to rub your left foot. In fact, that's something you find in some of the books of fiqh. They say you can use one foot to rub another. So that's absolutely something you can do, and it's a good question. Someone said, so rubbing is fard, but wiping between the toes is a highly recommended sunnah. Yes, rubbing is the fard, wiping the toes is a highly recommended sunnah. Brother Nathan, I see you have your hand up.
Assalamu alaikum. I have kind of like I get a little OCD about things, so please pardon me.
We're a good match, because I used to ask the OCD questions about tahara. That was
yeah.
me.
yeah. I might hit you up with that later, inshallah. But about the dalq, this is the first time I'm trying to strictly follow any madhab seriously. So alhamdulillah for that. But about the dalq, how, I don't want to say thorough, like you don't want to do a thorough job, but how extensive does the dalq have to be? The way I've been doing it, I'm trying to get like 100% coverage. You know what I mean? Like I want to get like every single part of my hand, every single part of whatever, like, wiped or rubbed with another part of another limb, usually with my hands, of course.
Right.
But it sounds like from it doesn't have to be as extreme as what I've been thinking it is.
Yes, you don't. So this is a good question, because it gives us a chance to go into a different kind of area about adab, about etiquette, right? About how we approach this thing. So a man asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, can I kiss my wife when I'm fasting? And he told one man who asked that question, no. Another person asked, can I kiss my wife when I'm fasting? He told that person, yes. Why? Well, some of the scholars of hadith, they say that the one who he said no to was an older person. So the Prophet ﷺ didn't fear that this person was going to fall into doing something that would break his fast from just kissing his wife. The other one was a younger person. So the Prophet ﷺ had the hikmah that if I tell this person he can kiss his wife, it could put him into a bad situation where he may lose his fast. I believe it was Ibn Abbas, if I'm not mistaken, one of the big Sahabas. Later, after the time of the Prophet ﷺ, he was sitting in his class in a circle teaching, and a man came to the Prophet ﷺ, a man came to him, anhu, and he said, will Allah forgive a murderer? And he said, yes. Another man came the same day and said, will Allah forgive a murderer? And he said, no. And the students asked why. He said, well, the first person who came, I saw he had remorse on his face. So I had to tell him, of course Allah will forgive a murderer, because he needs to make tawbah, and Allah will forgive any sin if the person makes sincere tawbah. The next person who came in, I saw anger in his face. So I told him, no, Allah's not going to forgive a murder, because this is a big sin, and he has to understand that this is a big haram that he's contemplating doing, so he'll avoid doing it, right? So similarly, if a person comes and asks, do you need to wipe thoroughly when you wipe in the wudu? If they're a person who seems like they don't really, they would like to not have to spend so much, effort trying to make sure they're thorough, you tell them yes, because the letter of the law is yes, you have to wipe every part. When you have to wipe the parts of your body that you are obligated to wipe in the wudu, right? But if you're a person, like you just said, Brother Nathan, and like I also was, for much of my life, who's kind of OCD with this, then, you probably are being too anxious about it. I remember asking my teacher a similar question. I was actually in the room with Sheikh Amin and with Sidi Kaba, who I mentioned at the beginning of the class, and I asked this question. And I remember the answer was basically, once you've wiped 3 times, there's no way that you will have missed a part of your body, right? So if you're doing the wudu and you're wiping the parts of your wudu that you're supposed to wipe 3 times, you don't need to worry about this. Did I wipe thorough enough? Did I catch every part? So you probably are being too anxious. You're probably obsessing over this a little bit too much, right? It's probably you're probably going above and beyond. If you wipe your arm 3 times, then in the 3 times, every spot on your arm should be wiped, right? If you missed a little spot, the first time, then you will have gotten it the second or third time. And remembering this, inshallah, should keep you from worrying and being too anxious about whether or not your wudu is valid. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Jazakallah khair. I'm still honestly anxious about it, but inshallah, I'll figure this out.
You still what?
Find the balance. I'm honestly still anxious about it, but inshallah, I'll find the balance. Inshallah, correct balance.
Inshallah. In our next class, we'll start a little bit early, and maybe we'll talk about this concept of waswas, of whispering, of things that give us anxiety, right, and how we address it, right, and we can maybe even talk about it one-on-one. But this is the subject that I've talked about before in the class, that the shaitan, a'udhu billah, will try to make us feel that our prayer and our wudu is not right, to give us some anxiety over our prayer and our tahara and things like that. And so we're taught that we have to ignore that. We have to fight against that. So if you know that you have some anxiety, keep reminding yourself that you don't need to have that level of anxiety, right? You're good. And inshallah, we'll talk more about that, because this is, studying with Sheikh Amin helped me with that immensely. So inshallah, wa iyaka, alhamdulillah. So I said I was gonna try to end by the wazifa. I'm gonna go a little bit over 3:30 or over 6:30 for the East Coast people, but I'm gonna not go too much further, inshallah ta'ala, so that you can catch the vast majority of the wazifa, inshallah ta'ala, if that's what you plan to do. But we wanna just quickly go through the last couple of parts of this section of the book. Bismillah. The next part we were looking at is making up salah. Making up salah, right? That's the next thing we're at now, making up salah. Now, if a person is making up their prayers, and it's funny because this was actually a question asked at the end of class last week, and it sure enough is the next thing in the book. If you miss more than 5 salah, more than 5 fard prayers, then you may make 1 iqamah for all of them, and you may start at any point, but you have to continue in order. Now, let me back up. If you miss 5 prayers or more, then if you miss more than 5 prayers, rather, let's say you miss 6 prayers, then you have the right to make the prayer that's in, and then go back and make the prayers you missed. Let's say you missed Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and Salatul Subh, which is the same prayer people call Salatul Fajr, right? Then when it comes time for the next Dhuhr, you can make Dhuhr and then go back and make the prayers you missed, right? As soon as you have the ability to. But if you miss less than 5 prayers, then you have to make the prayers that you missed before you make the next prayer. So let's say you miss Salatul Subh, which is Salatul Fajr. You miss Salatul Dhuhr. You miss Salatul Asr. You miss Salatul Maghrib. And now it's time for Salatul Isha. You can't make Salatul Isha until you've gone back and made Salatul Subh, Salatul Dhuhr, Salatul Asr, Salatul Maghrib. This is the Maliki position. I think maybe some of the other madhahib may have a different idea about this, but this is the Maliki position. So you should make all the prayers that you have missed, if you've missed fewer than 5 fard prayers, before you make the prayer that's in. But when you stand up to make them up, you can make 1 iqamah and then proceed to make all of the prayers. You can make 1 iqamah and then proceed to make all of the prayers. So 1 iqamah is enough when you make prayers back to back. It's similar to if you are traveling and you combine Dhuhr and Asr. You can make 1 iqamah for Dhuhr and then make Asr without making another iqamah before it. You have the choice to make it or not. If you're in a congregation, you can make it, but you don't have to make it. 1 iqamah is enough for all of the prayers that are made back to back to back right after each other. And the book makes the point, again, I'll read it. It says, if you miss more than 5 salat, you may say 1 iqamah for all, and you may start at any point and continue in order. What they mean by that is, it doesn't matter if you start with Salatul Dhuhr, it doesn't matter if you start with Salatul Asr. What matters is that you pray the prayers in their proper order, right? Let's say, for instance, you owe a year's worth of prayers, right? And you don't know the order that you missed them in. You don't know exactly when you missed the Fajr, when you missed the Dhuhr. Then when you stand up to make them up, it doesn't matter which one you make. Let's say you make them 3 at a time. Every night before you go to bed, you're in the habit of making 3 prayers until you feel that you've made up all the prayers that you missed in the year that you weren't praying. That one iqamah would be enough for all 3 of those prayers. And it doesn't matter which prayer you start with, but you have to make them in order. So you would make Fajr or Subh, then Dhuhr, then Asr, or Dhuhr, then Asr, then Maghrib, or Asr, then Maghrib, then Isha, like that, inshallah ta'ala. I see someone asked the question, does the 5 prayers really only apply to people who are generally up to date on prayers? If you have a long backlog of prayers, are you basically always in a position to pray what is currently in first? And then you said you believe the question was answered. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. The next point, they give an example. They say, for example, if you left off with Dhuhr, then start like if you left off with Dhuhr, start with Subh and continue in order. So what they're saying is, again, if you have a sense of what prayer you missed, like let's say Subh was the last prayer you missed, right? Then you can start with Dhuhr and continue like that. They say if you miss, the next point, they say if you miss 5 or less than 5 prayers, then you may say 1 iqamah, but you have to start with the prayer that you left off and continue in order. So let's say you owe Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, and Isha, and now you get up to make Salatul Subh, but you know you have to pray all those prayers first. In that situation, you have to make them in the order you missed. Dhuhr, then Asr, then Maghrib, then Isha, then your Salatul Subh. So when it's a small amount of prayers, then it should be easy for you, inshallah ta'ala, to know the order that you missed them in, if it's less than a day's worth of prayers. And so you need to make them up in the order that you missed them. Alhamdulillah. Then they give an example. They say, if you left off with Salatul Dhuhr, then you start with Salatul Dhuhr, and then you continue in order. So I hope you get it. I actually said the last example a little bit wrong. Basically, what they're saying is, if you missed more than 5 prayers, doesn't matter which prayer you start with, but you make up all the prayers that you're making in order as best as you can. But if you missed a small amount of prayers, less than 5 prayers, then you have to pray them in the order that you missed them. And then the last point it gives here, they say, if you miss Salatul Dhuhr and Salatul Asr and Salatul Maghrib comes in, then you have to say Salatul Dhuhr and Salatul Asr first, even if that means that you're going to end up making Maghrib late, because the sins for missing Dhuhr and Asr increase every minute. So sometimes we may have the wrong idea that the prayer that's in is what's most important, but that's not correct. It's the prayers that you missed, the previous prayers, that are more important, that are bigger. It's like the clock is ticking. It's like if you owe somebody money and you tell them, I'm going to pay you on Saturday, right? And then you owe somebody, maybe the same person or maybe a different person, money, and you tell them you're going to pay them on Sunday. You don't say, well, let me pay the Sunday debt off because that's the most current one. No, you say, let me pay the Friday debt off first, the original debt off first, because the longer that you go into not paying it back, the more upset the person who loaned you the money is going to be. So it's like that with the prayers. The prayers that we missed, particularly if it's a short number of prayers, less than 5, the sin for leaving it off increases with time. And so we want to get those sins off of our back. We want to get those prayers done before we do the next prayer. Someone said, I was out all day and had this situation today. Alhamdulillah, I made Dhuhr and Asr first in time to make Maghrib on time. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, rabbil alameen. I'm going to go a little bit further because I am trying to make sure we keep time with the class, and then we'll have a question answer for those who can stick around for a few more minutes, inshallah ta'ala. The next part that we look at in the book is leaving a fard, right? Leaving a fard. And it says leaving a fard in the last rak'ah before salams, right? Leaving rak'ah in the last rak'ah before salams. Allahumma salli wa sallim. Wait a minute, did we already discuss this? Missing salams only if you get to say salams and you have not turned your back from the qibla, but time has passed. Okay, bismillah. So if you forget a fard in the last rakat before you make salam, in the last rakat of the prayer, before you make salam, you forget to do a fard. for example, you forget to sit and make tashahhud, and for example, you're sitting to say the atashahhud in the last rakat of the prayer, and you remember that you did not say Fatiha, right? Then you stand up and say Fatiha and complete the rakah and say salam, and then you make sujood saw after salam for what you added. So if I'm sitting, I'm making Salatul Isha, I'm sitting in the last rakah, and I remember I did not say Fatiha in that rakah, in that last rakah, that fourth rakah that I'm currently in. I stand up, I say the Fatiha, and I say everything that I would normally say in that rakah. I do everything that I would normally do in that rakah until the end. Now I have a prayer where I have 4 complete rakah, but the last rakah has some extra movements, because before I made the complete rakah, I made an incomplete rakah where I forgot to say Fatiha. I hope you follow what I'm saying. If you're in the last rakat of Salatul Isha and you remember you didn't say Fatiha, or you're in the last rakat of Salatul Maghrib and you remember you didn't say Fatiha, in that last rakat that you're in, you stop, stand up, you say the Fatiha, you say and do everything that comes after that in the rakah. Then at the end of the prayer, you sit and make a tashahhud as you normally would, and you say Assalamu alaikum wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to the right, and then you're going to make sujood saw. Right? You're going to do 2 sajdatain after you salam out. Then you're going to sit and you're going to say Attahiyatu lillah, Azakiyatu lillah, wa salawatu wa tayyibatu lillah as you normally would. You say the atashahhud as you normally would. And after you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, you stop. This is one of the few times you won't even say Salatu ala Nabi. When you make sujood saw after salams, you stop after you say the atashahhud, and you say Assalamu alaikum or Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to your right, or Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah to your right and your left, if that's your habit, right? We're going to stop there, and we're going to open it up for questions and answers, inshallah ta'ala, and we will come back next week and start where we left off. And we're going to, inshallah, hopefully ending at this earlier time will also force me to be a little bit more quick, inshallah, so we can get through the book. When we start the book over again, I'm going to try to go through it a little bit quicker this time than I've gone through it in the past. Someone has a question, and then if you have other questions, feel free to write them in the chat, or you can raise your hand or take yourself off mute and say them. We're just going to take a couple because I know some people might want to go and catch the wazifa. Someone said, do I pray Maghrib if I'm in the masjid? As they say, there should be no other salat apart from the one ongoing in Jama'ah. Is this position correct? Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammad. This is a very good question. So, some of the books, they say that when, particularly in the Maliki madhab, when you're in a masjid, you have an established Jama'ah that the imam makes. And if you want to catch the prayer, right, and someone said they missed Dhuhr and Asr to be precise, if you want to make the prayer, okay, so these are 2 different questions, but I'll answer the first one first, inshallah. If you want to make the prayer in Jama'at, get there in time to make it with the imam, right? However, if, let's say you come into the masjid just after they made Maghrib as a Jama'at, and you and a couple other people who are coming to the masjid late want to make Maghrib and Jama'at, you can do it. It's not haram. Doesn't make the prayer unaccepted. You can do it. But it's not good etiquette for there to be a lot of prayers in Jama'ah aside from the prayer in Jama'ah with the imam. So you go to the masjid, big masjid, the imam leads the Jama'ah in prayer to make Maghrib. You come in a little bit late, you and 3 other brothers, right? You want to make the prayer in Jama'ah, no problem. Then another group comes after you, a couple minutes after that. They want to make prayer in Jama'at, not a big deal. But after that, you should stop. And when you come into the masjid and you see a significant amount of time has passed after the Jama'at time, you make up your prayer by yourself. You go and you make your Maghrib by yourself. This is the better etiquette. Some even say that second and third Jama'at shouldn't be done. But, you know, my teacher was a little bit lenient with that. When we asked him, he said, you know, if you want to do it, it's okay. You know, it's not haram, but it's better etiquette to try to get there and make the prayer in Jama'at with the imam. So practically speaking, if I go to a masjid where I know there's a particular kind of culture where if I start making a jamaat after the jamaat with the imam, they're going to look at me funny. I'm going to avoid that and just pray the prayer by myself. If I'm not sure, I'll probably avoid that and pray the prayer by myself. If I've been coming here a lot and I know it's very common for people to do it, then I may make a jamaat. I may pray in jamaat, especially if it's shortly after the time for prayer has come, right? But you do have this opinion in the book. So I would say it's a correct opinion, but it's not an absolute where, you don't have the right or the prayer is invalid if you pray in a jamaat in the masjid shortly after the jamaat with the imam. But if you go to the masjid and the people say, no, don't do it, pray by yourself, then you should listen, because that is a valid opinion as well. They're just being a little bit stricter, which, alhamdulillah, there's no problem with that. And then someone said, I missed Dhuhr and Asr, to be precise. If you go onto the masjid at Maghrib's time and you have not made Dhuhr and Asr, then you have to go make Dhuhr and Asr before you join the Maghrib prayer. It's best if you can do it before you come to the masjid, because you don't want to come to the masjid and the people are praying in Jamaat and then you're off praying by yourself, because the people may think that you're doing that because you don't want to pray behind the imam. It can cause a fitna. So it's better if you pray before you come to the masjid, or if the masjid has a place where you can go off to the side and find a little nook or cranny where you can make your Dhuhr and Asr, right, privately, and try to make it quick enough to come and join the Jamaat for Maghrib, then that is good too. That's acceptable too. But if you come to the masjid, they're making Maghrib, and maybe you forgot, and you say, oh, I didn't make Dhuhr and Asr. You have to go and make the Dhuhr and Asr first. But try to avoid being in that position, because you don't want the people to see you praying separately by yourself when the people are praying in Jama'ah, because it may cause a fitna. They may think you don't want to pray behind the imam. They may people who haven't been educated in this fiqh. So they may say, no, you have to pray the prayer that's in with us before you pray the prayers that you missed. This is incorrect, right? But everybody doesn't have the proper understanding or the same understanding. Maybe they're following a different madhab or a different way or something like that. So to keep yourself from being in that position is better if you try to avoid that situation if you can, inshallah. Someone said, what should a person do if after making salat, they discover najas is on their body? Would it be necessary to pray the previous prayer again? If you pray a prayer and you discover that there's najasa on your body after the prayer, from what I remember, inshallah ta'ala, I'll go back and double check this, but I'm pretty sure that I remember correctly. If you discover it and there's still time to make up the prayer before the prayer goes out, then it's mustahab to repeat the prayer. Remove the najasa and repeat the prayer. So let's say you made the prayer, you made Salatul Asr, then you realize, oh, I had some najasa on my person, right? If it says Asr, if Maghrib hasn't come in yet, you should remove the najasa and repeat the prayer. But if the Maghrib is in, then you remove the najasa and you pray the Maghrib, right? If the time of the prayer has already left, then don't worry about making the prayer. You're forgiven because you didn't know that the najasa was on your person. Now, if a person knowingly prayed with najasa on them, that's a different story. That's a bigger problem. Alhamdulillah. I hope that answers the question. Someone said question number 2, is there a specification for the leather sock? Meaning, should the sock be above the ankle, for instance? This is a little bit of a more difficult question. And I want to end now so people don't totally miss the wazifa if they want to go make wazifa. But I'll just say there's different opinions about it. Actually, the leather sock does have certain conditions. I believe it is supposed to be above the ankle, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the leather sock should not have any hole in it. This is called the khuf, for anybody who's not familiar with this. The khuf is a leather sock. You can wipe over it in your wudu, but you have to have wudu before you put it on to be able to wipe over it. You can't wear it and continue wiping over it for more than 24 hours. After 24 hours, you got to take it off and make wudu on your foot. But during those 24 hours, you can make wudu. And when you get to your foot, you can just wipe over the leather sock. But if you take the leather sock off, you break your wudu. If there's a hole in the leather sock, you break your wudu, right? Part of the reason why I say this is a more complicated question is because there's different opinions. If you studied with Sheikh Amin, you may have also heard a different opinion, which is that, you have a little bit more leniency with the shoe than the leather sock. And actually, you didn't ask about the shoe, you asked about the leather sock. So that's actually easy, right? Leather sock is easy, is what I just said. If you take the leather sock off, you break your wudu. If you get a hole in your leather sock, right? You break your wudu. I'm going to go back and read these previous questions, but somebody said, does it have to be a leather sock? This is where it gets tricky. Some people say it has to be a leather sock for you to make masah over it. Other people say if your sock is thick enough that you can wipe it without the water penetrating and you feeling it on your foot, then you can wipe over it just like you would the sock. And this is my understanding. This is what we know from Sheikh Amin, right? You can also make masah over your shoe, and the ruling is essentially the same, but there needs to be more conversation about that. But in terms of the leather sock, if it gets a hole in it, you take it off, your wudu's broken. Does it have to be a leather sock? Well, it doesn't, but it has to be a sock that's thick enough that if you wipe over it, you're not going to feel the water touching your foot. Someone asked, in the second rakat of a three or four rakat prayer, are you supposed to recite the dua on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the prayer on Ibrahim alayhi salam after at-tashahhud? Yes. In the second rakat of a 3 or 4 rakat prayer, no. In the second rakat of Maghrib or Dhuhr or Asr or Isha, right after the second rakat, we sit and we say the at-tashahhud, and we just say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. We say at-tahiyyatu lillah, zakiyatu lillah, wa salawatu wa tayyibatu lillah. Assalamu alaikum ya nabi wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. And we stop there and we stand up for the third rakah. Right? So you don't say the prayer on the Prophet after at-tashahhud in the second and third rakah. And for people that need to go to make the wazifa, bismillah, you're perfectly fine. We're going to end very soon anyway, and you can check out the YouTube video to catch the rest of the answers to these questions. Someone said, quick clarification on the guidance you gave for the person who missed Dhuhr and Asr. If they owe more than 5 prayers, can they join the Jama'ah for Maghrib if it's currently in? No. If you said if you owe more than 5 prayers. So this is a tricky question. So if you mean by that, if you owe more than 5 prayers, including the Dhuhr and Asr, so you missed 6 prayers and Asr was the 6th prayer, can you join the Jama'ah for Maghrib? If that's your question, then the answer is yes. You can pray the Maghrib and then you go back and make up the prayers that you missed. Yes. But if a person was in a situation where they missed 5 prayers last week that they still need to make up, and they missed Dhuhr and Asr today, they need to make the Dhuhr and Asr of today before they join the Jama'at to make the Maghrib that's in. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Someone said, if I am standing, alhamdulillah, ameen, jazakumullah khair. Someone said, if I am standing by a tap, can I wet my hands and wipe my feet instead of raising my feet like a kitchen tap, for example? Yes, you don't have to stick your foot under the water in order for your foot to be washed in the wudu. Some people do that, and it's perfectly fine if they do. I think the Hanafi madhab may say it's better for you to make sure that water runs on your foot. I'm not sure, but I know a lot of the Hanafi Muslims that I know, they're good about making sure they put their foot underneath some water. But in the Maliki madhab, no, if you just wet your hand and you wipe your foot, then your wudu is valid. When I make wudu at a bathroom sink, I usually don't put my foot in the sink. I just wet my hand and then I wipe my foot with my left hand and comb through the toes with my left finger. And this is sufficient. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So I think we're gonna stop there because it's already with left. Yes, with left. So it's better to wipe your feet, both of your feet, with your left hand. That's the stronger opinion. Yeah, if a person used their right hand, the wudu is still valid. But it's better to use your left hand for both of your feet. Alhamdulillah. It's better to use your left hand for both of your feet. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. We'll go ahead and end there. If you have any other important burning questions, feel free to leave me a message. I am going to put my number here in the chat. Anybody who doesn't have my direct number, please go ahead and send me a text. Oh, I'm sorry, I put it for one person. I want to put it for everybody. And we'll go ahead and close out with dua. I am, for people who have a little bit of time to stay and who don't have it, after I make the dua, I'm going to put up in the chat the information for anybody who wants to send any money to contribute to our monthly contribution, our monthly gift to Sheikh Amin. But I'm going to make dua first because many of you probably already have that, and I want you to feel free to go if you need to. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق ناصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقداره العظيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum Jamaat. Feel free to I look forward to seeing you all next week. And like I said, I'm about to put my information in the chat for anybody who might want to send a contribution for Sheikh Amin, inshallah ta'ala. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. For everybody who's still here, inshallah, we'll see you next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And Haji Time, let's talk soon, inshallah. I'll try to give you a call in the next couple of days, inshallah, so we can catch up. But if I forget, feel free to call me too.
Inshallah, yes, sir. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.